In the pre-dawn darkness of August 8, 1963, at a lonely stretch of track in Buckinghamshire, England, the world changed for 15 men. They weren't revolutionaries or politicians. They were tradesmen of the underworld. They were about to execute a heist so precise, so audacious, that it would be dubbed the crime of the century. Imagine a prize of £2.6 million, the equivalent of $90 million today. No guns, no high-tech hacking, just a leather glove, a few cans of paint, and a terrifyingly simple understanding of human psychology. But the paradox of the Great Train Robbery isn't just how they took the money. It's how the weight of that much cash became a gravity well that eventually swallowed every single one of them. This is the story of Bruce Reynolds, a mastermind who played a high-stakes game of chess against the British Crown, and the one mistake that turned a perfect getaway into a lifetime of looking over his shoulder. To understand the train, we have to understand the man, Bruce Reynolds. To the public, a 36-year-old antiques dealer. To Scotland Yard, a ghost. Reynolds didn't believe in luck. He believed in preparation. A year before the train, in November 1962, Reynolds and his crew hit Heathrow Airport. Their target, a high-value shipment of cash. They wore tailored suits, moving through the terminals with the confidence of aristocrats. While Reynolds sat in a getaway car outside, his team ambushed security guards in a lift, using nothing but physical force. They walked away with £62,000. Today, that's $2 million. For most, it was a fortune. For Reynolds, it was an insult. The intelligence had suggested £400,000. The crew was restless, the atmosphere toxic with blame. Reynolds, ever the diplomat, made a vow that would echo through history. This was just a warm-up. The next one will change your lives forever. But the law was watching. Detective Frank Williams knew Reynolds was the architect. In a tense cinematic encounter, Williams taunted him, calling the Heathrow job amateur. Reynolds stayed cool. He knew something Williams didn't. He had a mole. Enter Brian Field, a corrupt solicitor with one foot in the courtroom and the other in the gutter. Field provided the connection for the operation, a contact within the Royal Mail, known only as the Ulsterman. The Ulsterman revealed a vulnerability in the spine of British logistics, the Up-Postal Special, a train traveling from Glasgow to London, carrying the surplus cash from Scottish banks. No armed guards, just 5 postal workers and a mountain of banknotes. The plan was a masterpiece of analog engineering. They wouldn't stop the train with force. They would stop it with a lie. Reynolds knew that even the most powerful locomotive is a slave to the signal. If the light is red, the driver stops. It's an ingrained reflex. But how do you turn a signal red without the railway authorities knowing? They recruited Roger Corddry, a specialist in electronics who operated under the cover of a florist. Corddry's solution was brilliant in its simplicity. To turn the distant signal to caution, he didn't hack a computer. He used a 6-volt battery and a black leather glove to cover the green light. To turn the main signal at Sears Crossing to danger, he simply draped a glove over the green lamp and powered the red one with a portable battery. On the night of August 6, the crew moved into Leatherslade Farm, a derelict property they'd purchased as a command center. They arrived in ex-military Land Rovers and a 3-ton Austin truck, painted in olive drab to blend in with local army maneuvers. August 8, 1:30 a.m. The train, led by locomotive D326, screeched to a halt at the red signal. Assistant driver David Whitby climbed down to check the trackside telephone. The wires had been cut with a custom-fabricated torque bar. As Whitby stood in the dark, a hand reached out of the shadows. The gang moved with military precision. They uncoupled the first 2 carriages, the engine and the high-value coach, from the rest of the train. The 70 passengers in the rear coaches never even realized they were being robbed. They thought it was a routine signal delay, but then, a snag. The driver, Jack Mills, resisted. He was struck over the head with a kosh, a brutal moment of violence Reynolds would later regret. Even worse, the gang's own backup driver realized he couldn't operate the complex diesel-electric locomotive. They had to force the bleeding Jack Mills to drive his own train to Bridego Bridge, the designated offloading point. For 15 minutes, a human chain moved 120 sacks of cash. They left 8 sacks behind because Reynolds' stopwatch was ticking. They had 2,631,684 pounds. Back at Leatherslade Farm, the atmosphere was electric. They were rich beyond their wildest dreams. But while they were drinking champagne and playing Monopoly with real money, the net was closing. The plan was for Brian Field to hire a cleaner to burn the farm to the ground, erasing all DNA and fingerprints. But the cleaner got cold feet. He took the money and vanished, leaving the farm intact. When the police arrived 5 days later, they found a forensic gold mine. Fingerprints on a Monopoly board. Fingerprints on a ketchup bottle. Fingerprints on a dish of salt. Scotland Yard unleashed their one-day man, Detective Tommy Butler. Butler was a predator. He didn't care about the money. He cared about the cage. One by one, the gang fell. Roger Corddry was caught trying to rent a hideout from a policeman's wife. Charlie Wilson was tracked to a new home. But Reynolds was different. Reynolds vanished. He fled to Mexico, then Canada, then back to the UK, living under the name Keith Miller. In one incredible moment, police raided his flat on a tip. To hide his face, Reynolds stripped naked, pretending to be the secret lover of the woman in the apartment. The embarrassed officers looked away, allowing the most wanted man in Britain to slip through their fingers once again. It took 5 years, but Tommy Butler finally got his man. In 1968, Reynolds was captured in Torquay. He didn't go out in a blaze of glory. He was tired. The money was gone, spent on the high cost of a life on the run. The Great Train Robbers were sentenced to a staggering 30 years each, a sentence usually reserved for murderers. The establishment wasn't just punishing a theft. They were punishing the humiliation of the crown. Bruce Reynolds died in 2013. He lived long enough to see his crime become a legend, a piece of folklore. In the end, the heist was a perfect success and a total failure. They proved that with a bit of paint and a leather glove, you could stop the world. But they forgot that the world doesn't stay stopped for long. The money is still mostly missing. £2 million lost to the winds of history. Perhaps the greatest trick Bruce Reynolds ever pulled wasn't stopping the train, but making us wonder if for one night it was actually worth it. If you found the story of the 1963 Great Train Robbery fascinating, there's another perfect heist that took place across the Atlantic. The United California Bank burglary was a job so clean, it left the FBI baffled for weeks, and you can watch that story right here. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this deep dive, and subscribe to Nexis for more premium documentaries on the world's most mysterious cases. I'm your host, and thanks for watching.